Yes. Your opinion, do you stand by the decision that you think that Magnifico did not catch that ball in the temple area?
You know, I hate to rehash that, but our replay official looked at all the various angles, and the one that showed in the stadium wasn't in slow motion, and we all reviewed it. Our head of officiating reviewed it. As you know, we have a consortium with the ACC, and their head of officiating, who supervises ours, looked at it, and we all looked at it, and in slow motion, you could see, you know, the ball on the ground, and it was bounced up very, very quickly. The slow motion shot from a certain angle showed it. And you know, video, slow motion video and that sort of video isn't released. You know, we don't release replay video. So it was the kind of thing where, you know, you open a can of worms if you start doing that. Nobody does that. So basically, again, I don't want to rehash it. The replay official had to make a tough call, and he did. And from our vantage point, it appeared to be the right call. And obviously, it was a major, you know, call for the season. But again, you know, I'd like to now, you know, focus on the future, because I think that's the important thing.
Commissioner, what did? I'm sorry.
I just want to get him first.
Oh, when you talk about expansion, you said in the past that you didn't want to raid other conferences. What about independent schools, maybe like Army, for instance?
Well, again, we liked playing 2 divisions with 12 teams. I'm not going to argue that we're thrilled with the 11-team setup. We think it'll work. We got a waiver, as you know, from the NCAA to play with 11 teams for 2 years, 20 and 21. Have a championship game and still maintain our 8 conference game schedule, which is really important to us. We don't have to play a round robin. We can keep our 4 non-conference games, which is very important to the development of this league. As you know, we play the so-called P5 conferences generally twice a year per team. So we have that. And as far as expansion, you know, we're not, I don't want to rile up the college community and talk about rating other conferences, that sort of thing. There are some independents out there. We all know who they are. I don't usually name any one team. If there's an interest in joining us, we would absolutely look at it. But right now, there hasn't really been, any such interest. And at this point, we're very likely to stay at 11 in 2020. You know, and 21, who knows? We do have the ability to do that. In addition, we can apply for an extension of the waiver for 22 and 23, but those are hard to get. Extensions are hard. We may decide to press for legislation that would allow us to continue playing at 11 if we have to. But the only thing I'll close by saying, we don't want to be forced to expand, and we don't want to take a team that we don't think fits our conference, either culturally, geographically, in terms of the brand. You know, we've got a powerful conference now. I mean, you can see what we've done, and you know, in talking to the ESPN, you know, talent today, they recognize how deep we are. We don't want to do anything to dilute that in any way. So at this point, there are some teams out there that potentially could add some value, but unless there's interest, we're not going to pursue it.
Commissioner,
this gentleman here.
It's the 2nd year in a row that Memphis got game day and prime time. How important is it for the conference to be on national TV in the morning time and the evening time?
Well, first of all, to have 2 years in a row, conference game, not a non-conference game, you know, where it's really the conference that's doing it. And we were thrilled to have Notre Dame Temple a few years ago in Independence Hall. We've also had some pretty iconic locations, you know, Beale Street today, you know, Independence Hall. But it's huge for our conference. We didn't expect this necessarily. You know, at the last minute we were told that it was certainly possible. And as you know, Tulsa came within a hair of beating both teams, which we wouldn't be here today talking about this. But the real message is how strong our conference is now. These are 4 different teams. We're talking about 2 different teams. It's not UCF again. And UCF's an excellent team, by the way. They won again today, 7-2. We've got a lot of good teams. When you can get 2 different teams on conference games, to have game day and the primetime game, that's enormous for us. And that's what we're trying to do. You know, we're trying to be a P6 conference, and this is the way you achieve that. You have that kind of depth and balance where you can have that. Now, I don't know whether we'll have 3 years in a row of this. You know, I could even see a scenario where we could have another game this year if things work out. And also you have to be fortunate too, because next week, I'll give you an example. You have Penn State, Minnesota, 2 undefeated teams. It's at Minnesota. I'm sure game day would love to go there. They may not have been to Minnesota in years and years. And yet you have LSU, Alabama on that day. And that's another game of the century, our 15th game of the century in the last 20 years. But the point is, it is a huge game, obviously. And so consequently, they'll probably end up there. I don't know. I can't read their minds. But this is, it worked out for us. And by the way, I just want to say, the people of Memphis, just incredible. They turned out. The scene there was incredible. The signs, I love the signs.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Just was one of, and the ESPN people, Kirk Herbstreit tweeted what a just tremendous, event it was, turnout. I think they enjoyed it as much as any game day they've done. And I just think it's a credit to the community to turn out like that. And we're talking about 8 in the morning and everybody getting there at 5, 6 in the morning, cold morning, and it was just spectacular. I really was pleased, and I was proud of the conference. And the last thing I'll say about that is Memphis deserved this. Obviously, the SMU story is terrific. 8-0, coming back from the death penalty. That's a huge story. But if Memphis hadn't been doing what they've been doing, especially the last several years, people forget how good this program has been ever since 2014, when Justin Fuente turned it around, and then obviously Mike Norvell's continued it. That really made a huge difference. If this team wasn't 7-1, then game day wouldn't be here, and it's a real tribute to what Memphis has done. And I think the fan base turned out because they know what this program has done. This has been great for the city.
Commissioner, what are your thoughts on the fair pay to play? I know that you said came out with something on Tuesday, I think it was.
Yes, I knew that would come up. I've been pretty outspoken that you have to be really cautious about this. I think the board is measured. It was measured in its response. The board wants to try to figure out a way to do name, image, and likeness without essentially paying players, and also by controlling the environment. Because remember, we run a national enterprise, and the NCAA is the schools, and you have to have certain rules that apply to everyone. And you also, this involves recruiting. This is not the Olympics where every 4 years you get together and you're not competing against each other in recruiting players. We can all obviously see the potential, for problems. If you have endorsements, is a company going to pay a player an endorsement because they want to recruit or retain that player? I mean, these are real issues. We really have to deal with these. I don't envy that committee that has to come up with an actual hard recommendation, because this is a really tough problem. And I've said too that I firmly believe in the amateur model. I think that the benefits bestowed on athletes and student athletes, and they do a great job and they have to work hard, are pretty good. And I think that the schools have a right to run an amateur enterprise. You don't have to go. Now granted, the NBA has a certain rule right now, and maybe that won't be there in a few years. You can go play in the XFL, you can play in Europe. You don't have to necessarily participate this way. So my feeling is something like this, if you risk the slippery slope, and that's why I think the board was cautious in what it said. The other thing is process. California and other states can pass laws, but we're running a national enterprise, and it has to have national rules. It has to apply to everybody. You have thousands of schools that participate at various levels. You have 130 in FBS. You have 360 in Division I basketball. If you don't have uniform rules, you can't have what we have. And so I'm not sure that the California legislators weren't just trying to send a signal, although they claim that if the NCAA doesn't, go as far as they did, and they just went carte blanche, and I don't think the board wants to go there. I think there's going to be a struggle down the road, and I don't know where it's going to go. But I do think that if you do something incrementally, you've got to be really careful. And typically this wouldn't involve a lot of people. And it's not as though if they play a year in college basketball, you can go to the NBA. Football's a little different, but in a short period of time, you become a pro, you can monetize your name, image, and likeness. If you doing it at the college level. There have to be some guardrails, there have to be some safeguards. Otherwise, you know, you've got a situation that could get out of control, and then it's not the kind of enterprise it's been. And the schools, I think, if it's not tethered to education at all anymore, I think the schools are going to have serious problem with it.
Any other questions?
Boy, you're going to let me off that easy?
Yeah, I think we've got one over here, Mike.
No, just Damon Sales of Roberts.com. Just now that you're here and the game's about to kick off, just some feedback from that you've been hearing regarding having a primetime game within the conference. Get your thoughts.
Well, again, I'm thrilled. You know, I can't tell you how excited I am for what's happening tonight. And you know, I love what this conference has accomplished over the last 7 years. What these schools have accomplished. This is a promotion for the city of Memphis, for the University of Memphis. What David Rudd has accomplished here. It's a promotion for our league, obviously. When you've got ESPN and you've got Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit here, and they're doing our game, and it's prime time. It doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't. And I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a great game on the field. These are two deserving teams, but it's a deserving league. And remember, whatever happens tonight casts a halo on the entire league. And when you have ESPN here in prime time, it's an imprimatur. It really is. It's a validation of where you've come. And they know that we're a really good league now. And this whole P6 campaign has been based on achievement. It's based on a real foundation. It's not based on sand. And so consequently, it's going to be a really important thing for us, obviously, to continue the momentum. I'm hoping that next year we can get another one. I mean, to have a couple in a row is beyond what we thought. If you look back and see where we were 7 years ago, it gives you a great sense of satisfaction to see what these schools are doing. And not only that, we had Temple, Notre Dame, and that was one of the highest rated games that ABC had that year. It was a great game. We've also had the ability, because we have great cities in this conference, we're able to be on Beale Street, we're able to be at Independence Hall. Last year UCF did a great job with their game day, and Lee Corso in his Knights uniform, and today, I know he got a lot of boos today. I thought he was going to put the Tiger hat on, and then he put on the pony, so that was pretty good. But again, I couldn't be more excited for everyone, and I'm just pleased for what our teams have accomplished, and they're getting the recognition finally that they deserve.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for being